When did I find out I had ADHD?
Yeah.
It could have been, or maybe it should have been when I was trying to tie flies and wrecked my girlfriend's car in college.
What?
And let me just be
you're
clear.
Talking about your wife's car?
Yes, Sue, who later became my wife.
Dating,
but yeah, the classic example, right? And at the time,
you were driving.
I was
and
driving,
trying to tie a fly.
I wasn't actually trying to tie a fly. I was trying to untangle fly line in the
as you were going fishing, or
as I was driving down the road.
Mr. Dale.
Mr. David.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Your hands are full today.
They are.
I don't think your little desk has been that packed with stuff.
No, you're probably right.
Bunch of stuff.
You're probably right. I think you're right.
Well, I'm excited for today's discussion.
You are.
I just want to dive right into it.
Okay.
Because it's one that I've been there's a lot of questions I've been meaning to ask you. But
Okay.
I'm like, why haven't I asked Dale these questions yet?
All right.
About this topic.
Oh, I'm glad you were just saving it for the right time. Right?
Yeah. So here goes. But this is a question I hear from, again, a lot of people.
Okay.
You hear it on the internet. You hear it on Instagram. You hear it. And the question is, does everyone have ADHD? Because it seems like we all have trouble paying attention. We all have trouble focusing.
Mm.
So it's like, do we all have it to some extent?
Yeah. So that's a really interesting question. So technically speaking, no, right? Based on the criteria in the DSM, no. But it is definitely, I think it's one of those things that functionally it's overdiagnosed a lot. Like,
oh, you think it's overdiagnosed?
Oh, 100%.
Like by professionals? Or like people I feel like people self-diagnose ADHD a lot.
They definitely do that.
Like, it's my ADHD.
Yeah, they definitely do that. I think the problem is that the slightest bit of inattention or hyperactivity is just attributed to, and what most people say is ADD, right? Because it used to be called that.
ADD. Yeah. Attention deficit disorder.
Yeah.
Now it's attention hyperactivity.
Yeah.
Deficit disorder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're saying most often, probably not.
Most often, probably not. Yeah. And because and this is the tricky part too, is that actually, so the current estimates is like between 1% and 5% of the population.
Okay.
Which is actually pretty small if you think about it.
That is very small.
For
how many people believe they have it?
Yeah, for how many people believe they have it and how many people talk about it, it's like you'd think it's like 20 to 30%. And if you were to Google it, it'd say it's very common. But 5% is not very common.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. That's very small. And and also one thing I learned about ADHD is it's not something you can catch or develop like depression.
No.
It's something that you're pretty much born with genetically.
Yeah. It's considered a neurological disorder.
Yeah.
Right. To where the manifestation and the functioning, like what we see is different, whether it's on neuroimaging, whether it's on, and I'm going to butcher how we say this, an MD could correct me, but electrocephalogram. Right.
I've never heard that word in my life.
So basically, like just think different ways to examine the brain. Right. We see different things when you're looking at individuals with ADHD. Now, the unfortunate truth, and the truth is you can't just use those instruments to diagnose ADHD. But to a degree, we would say, all right, people that manifest these specific things that we're saying tend to exhibit these things. Now, there's also still a large wave of like, well, is it all just standard, right? Is it all regular? Like, isn't it to a degree something that would be considered normal?
What?
ADHD.
That's normal for...
And normal for, say, a kid to have trouble focusing or have trouble paying attention or to be slightly inattentive at times or...
Right, because they do say as well that you should be slow to diagnose a kid with ADHD because is this developmental? Like, is this appropriate for their age that they're not going to sit still in class for an hour?
Yes, and so like for kicks and giggles,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely one of those things that you want to be sure that you're covering all the criteria
Mm-hmm.
and all the criteria is met. And I think, again, we've talked about this before, that essentially, like, and one of these books I have right here is the DSM-5. If you were to like look at all of the disorders in this book, essentially you're looking at 30 different symptoms
Mm-hmm.
categorized into different ways.
Yes.
And it's not to diminish it, but to some point, like, essentially the diagnosis is meant to be able to help and support the individual.
Mm-hmm.
That's ultimately what it's there for. And because as professionals, we're in a place of saying, all right, well, we don't know what's going on. Can you tell me what you're experiencing? And so to a level, right, there's a little bit of nuance and challenge, because you're still beholden to the person to report what it is that they're experiencing to a
Mm-hmm.
degree. Now,
Yeah.
in some contexts, you can watch and observe, right, with children perhaps. But again, if the parent's coming in and saying their child is dealing with this, okay, to a degree, we're still dealing with that, which is why some and most ADHD assessments involve parents and teachers as well.
Yeah, it's pretty holistic.
Or it tries to be,
Yeah.
right?
Ideally.
And then you'd have a psychological assessment as well and review what criteria is met. But again, the whole idea is that, okay, if we can identify a certain set of consistencies, then hopefully we can better identify what might be able to help. And when people exhibit these things, hopefully we have an idea of, well, here's what tends to help when these things are exhibited.
Yeah. So okay, so before we go further into ADHD itself, what would you say to somebody who believes they experience symptoms akin to ADHD, but maybe it's very likely they don't have it? Like, for example, maybe growing up they didn't have all the issues one would expect to see with ADHD,
Sure.
but just like in their adulthood, it's like the social media, the technology, I can't focus. Like,
Sure.
what is it I'm struggling with? If it's not ADHD, is there something else we can use to understand what this is that people face when it comes to struggling with attention?
I think that one of the things that we have to realize is, as a society, I think more now than ever, we're more distracted.
Right.
And we have more things calling our attention and diverting our attention away from where it needs to be. Our priorities aren't placed in the right places. Mm-hmm. So inherently now you have attention going all over the place. And so you could argue that everyone does have attention deficit. Because we have our priorities out of line.
Yeah. Right.
That's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I would say that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Get your priorities straight. Understand what's actually important in the moment. Yeah, and you'll probably see some symptom reduction. That's why. Now, again, that's my non-therapeutic, just harsh reality.
Harsh take. Yeah.
No, I think there's.
But it's to a certain degree, it's true.
Yeah, and the reality is too is that a lot of people don't take care of themselves. They don't take care of their bodies. They eat crap. And so you're going to feel like crap, and your brain is not going to perform well. Your whole body is a unit that needs certain things in order to be able to thrive. I had somebody just the other day talk to me about what's one of the first line things I can do? I don't know that I want to take medication. What can I do to help this attention issue? Somebody said they believe that I have ADHD. What is it that I could actually do? And I said, the first line thing that I would say most competent professionals and psychologists will even tell you is you can exercise.
For attention.
Yes, for attention.
Improve your attention.
Yes, to improve your attention.
Okay.
Right. To improve and what it is effectively that we're trying to improve there is brain-derived nootropic factor. Effectively, that's a fancy way of saying the brain's ability to create its own, so effectively creating brain cells and effectively being able to produce produce its own nootropic, right? So for instance, a nootropic is any sort of chemical that's going to prevent reuptake, like caffeine. You could argue that Adderall is an extreme nootropic. Yeah. Right?
So caffeine is a nootropic.
Yes, caffeine is considered a nootropic.
And that's why people
can't
live without their coffee in the morning.
It's also highly addictive, but it's a nootropic. Yeah.
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 Okay.
And so, but the brain can produce its own nootropic factor when you exercise. That's why people get, like, you can hear things like the runner's high or feel really good when they exercise.
Mhm.
People can become addicted to exercise, theoretically speaking, but it's not the same as, like,
Yeah.
you don't see it the same as what you see with caffeine.
Mhm.
So that is the first line thing someone can do.
Yeah.
And
So
there
lifestyle
is,
changes.
yeah, lifestyle alterations.
Yeah.
There also is evidence towards, okay, how much exercise, what type, and what degree and what intensity. The standard thing that we would look to address is, okay, you'd want to keep what the research indicates is your heart being in a working zone for at least 30 to 45 minutes.
Mhm.
And a working zone is defined by 220 minus your age at
Mhm.
approximately 70 to 80%,
Mhm.
usually 65 to 70%. And so if we can do that, and then typically it's cardiovascular exercise that produces more of this.
Mm.
So when it's more cardio intense, that's what
They're
we see
better.
because
Yeah.
because it increases the heart rate more readily
Mm.
and you have more cardiovascular functioning. It's not to say we don't see nootropic factors arise with weight bearing activities. You do. You see testosterone production happen, but you also see norepinephrine production happen.
Mhm.
However, dopamine
Mhm.
is produced in greater quantities when there is a high level of cardiovascular activity.
Mm. Yeah. Got you. Right. So,
And that's the main one that people are shooting for.
yeah. No, that makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, I was reading a book titled ADHD 2.0
Oh, nice.
by two
I
doctors.
haven't read that.
Yeah, so it's by, so for those of you who want to go read it, it's by Dr. Edward Hallowell and Dr. John Ratty. And in that book they just like emphasize like not everyone has ADHD. This is something that people are born with, right?
Yes.
So they try to come up with a label for people who don't have ADHD but have
Still struggle with cognition.
similar
Yeah.
symptoms. Yeah. And so they called it VAST, like VAST,
Sure.
variable attention stimulus trait.
Sure.
And again, they just found a way to categorize it. It doesn't really mean much. It's just like,
And let's not forget
yeah,
that all ADHD is a way to categorize what people are experiencing.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's only relevant to the point that, okay, what are we trying to treat and how are we
Mhm.
trying to treat it?
Yeah.
The reason why it's even relevant for us to be able to have as clinicians
Mhm.
is so that, okay, we can make a good diagnosis
Mhm.
and then somebody else can perhaps try to treat. And typically it's usually with medications.
Yes. Right. And again, like clarifying, I guess the big difference here is that, like you said, ADHD is a neurological disorder,
Yeah.
meaning that there's some wiring in your brain that's maybe impacting the way you naturally go about
Yes.
navigating, versus like if you don't have ADHD and you're struggling with attention, it's likely more so environmental, lifestyle things that are
Yeah.
really the cause,
Yeah.
not necessarily you have something, a wiring in your brain that you were born with or that was passed on from a family member that's causing you to struggle with attention.
Well, and what's also relevant to know, and one of my favorite books, honestly, for ADHD is Smart but Scattered.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by Peg Dawson and Richard Guare.
Okay.
And that's what it looks like. This is the guide to success.
Yeah.
Right. So, but Smart but Scattered she does a great job and he does a great job of just kind of going through, and they even offer some self-diagnostic tools.
Okay. For ADHD.
Yes, for ADHD specifically, for you and your partner to do, or
Mhm.
usually a husband and a wife to do, and sometimes the
Mhm.
clinician to be able to evaluate as well.
Oh, so it's not just for kids, but you're saying it's
Yeah,
for
not
adults
just for
as
kids,
well.
for adults as well. Because,
Okay.
and one of the things she points out is that, and this is very relevant, most people, let's say they never got diagnosed with it. Many people that are adults, or rather, many people that have ADHD, usually by the time they're in their 20s, will be able to effectively navigate the challenges that they have inherently, and they will not grow out of it, but will be able to function with it.
Yes. Like my wife.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we found out she had ADHD like a year and a half ago, I think.
Sure.
And she was 31 at the time.
Sure.
And
I
so
was
it's like,
diagnosed
whoa.
much later in life as
Yeah.
well.
So okay. So big reveal. You have ADHD.
I do.
So my first question was going to be like, when did you realize you had it? When did you discover?
So this is a great question. Let's maybe circle back.
Yeah.
Maybe it this. When did I find out I had ADHD?
Yeah.
It could have been, or maybe it should have been when I was trying to tie flies and wrecked my girlfriend's car in college.
What?
And let me just
and
be
you're
clear.
talking about your wife's car?
Yes, Sue, who later
Who
became my
you're
wife.
dating,
but
yeah.
the classic example, right? And at the time,
You were driving.
I was
and
driving,
trying to tie a fly.
I wasn't actually trying to tie a fly. I was trying to untangle fly line in the
as you were going fishing, or
as I was driving down the road.
Were you going fishing?
Yes, I was going fly fishing. On my way to go fly fishing. Somebody was in the passenger seat and the fly line was all tied up underneath him. And I was like, oh yeah, let me just fix, and like completely like focused on what was happening over here. Meanwhile, I'm going down the road going 55 miles an hour. Not a great combination.
What happened?
What happened?
You like?
Oh, I started to go off the road, overcorrected, ran into a tree.
Ugh.
Honestly, I'm lucky to be alive. As thank God the other guys too. But it was really funny because he's like,
totaled it?
Oh yeah, totaled the car. Yeah. As soon as I wrecked it, I was like, what just happened? And the guy looked at me. He's like, oh, don't worry, man. I've wrecked plenty of cars.
Oh, Siri's listening to us.
Siri's listening to us.
Siri's like,
she's giving her 2 cents on this.
Crazy ADHD diagnosis.
Yeah, that's funny.
I just muted her. Okay, so that was the first like indicative sign for you?
No, it wasn't. It just should have been. It should
Should
at
have
that
been.
point. At that point, I should have taken a longer, harder look about. Hey, man, like maybe I struggle paying attention within certain areas. And really, what it was exhibited by, I think, for me, is that when there was a certain level of excitement, right, that I had towards a thing, it was very hard to derail me from that thing. So hyper focus was a thing. Right. And still is a thing.
Mhm,
Right. I can, if I zone in on
Yeah, yeah.
something,
Yeah.
I will get into it
Yep.
and hyper focus, and then I will get good at it
Yeah.
typically.
Right. And,
And
that's the gift that I feel like people I know with ADHD, it's like you can get good fast at something because of that hyper
Yeah.
focus.
That hyper focus, man, fuels you.
You're like,
you'll just get it
just
done.
master it
And
quick.
then I'll get bored with it. And then just it'll drop off the face of the earth if I'm not careful. So I've had to really learn how to pace myself within areas so that things can be lasting and sustainable and still be very functional.
Yeah.
And that's, I would say, that what most people with that struggle with. Now, I would also say though that I learned that exercise for me was something that was highly, highly needed.
Mhm.
And I didn't know why. I just knew that, hey, like I tend to do better. Right.
Do better what? Just like pay attention better, or
I tend to do better. It's for me
just
specifically,
perform
better in anything.
Mhm.
Now, it was interesting because it was in graduate school that I first started to even wonder about it. I didn't even at the time. It was like, but in graduate school, looking back on it, I was exercising like twice a day. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. and go swim, go do my classes, do homework, I'd do jujitsu at noon, come back, do classes, do jujitsu in the evenings, right?
3 times a day working out
on certain days.
on certain days,
right?
yeah.
But most days I would be doing either a 5 a.m. jujitsu class or I'd be swimming in the morning at 5 a.m.
Shoo.
And so that was but it worked very well. And I kept that up, my entire graduate school. And so it worked out pretty good for me.
So you not diagnosed at
that point in time? No, it wasn't until after we actually moved that I suspected perhaps that, there were some elements there that I struggled with, but I hadn't had a full workup myself. And when I say a full workup, I hadn't spent enough time with a clinician to be able to say, all right, I'd like to really focus on these things and I'd like to review some diagnostic criteria here. And that's where it became more apparent.
So not too long ago.
Yeah, it was like 5 years ago. 6 years ago. Yeah.
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 Wow. How was that? Like,
it was
did
like,
it help knowing you, like,
oh,
having
no,
that diagnosis?
Well, it did, because it was like, so much makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. But the best part of it
yeah,
is that like I go home, I tell my mom, I was like, hey, so I think I have ADHD. And she's like, you didn't know that? Yeah.
He's
Like,
like,
I could have
duh.
told you that. Like it was just like,
Yeah, she's like, dude,
are
tell
you
me
serious,
something new.
Dale? Like,
Tell me something new.
yeah, and like her whole family had the similar reaction. Like really? Like you
Yeah.
don't,
Real? Oh,
you
they
didn't?
knew it
Oh
too.
yeah, yeah. Because everyone would give me crap about how I'm trying to tie flies while I drive. I'll never live that story down as long as I live. Right,
It's
and I
like
have to correct them,
textbook,
and
textbook.
I'll have to correct them and be like, I wasn't tying flies, I was untying fly line. That's
Yeah.
what was happening.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
right,
I
and
was
that's,
untying.
I
Yeah.
mean, but that's a classic thing, right?
Mm.
And unfortunately,
So it
like,
was helpful for you to know.
it was helpful for me
Yeah.
to know. Yeah, and in many ways, like I could be able to um, understand better about why things were really functional and why they weren't.
Mhm.
Now, when I first was diagnosed with it, that I took the standard treatment because what I was struggling with at the time, and this is really common, is that people with ADHD, or rather that meet this criteria. So let's just say that for those people that are averse to the idea of having a diagnosis, because there's
Mhm.
many out there. So
Mhm.
I'm going to say, hey, how about
Mm.
if we have people that are averse to the notion of saying, all right, this is a diagnosis. How about this? People that struggle with inattention and perhaps hyperactivity and
Mhm.
perhaps lots of different ideas at one time and staying committed to one task for a long period of time. So if you're a person that deals with that, let's say,
Yeah.
right, and then you have a lot of life transitions, it's going to be much harder for you sometimes to be able to adapt to certain areas, especially if you don't have some of those same coping tools that you're used to having. So, for example, for me, one of the things that changed,
Mhm.
I was in grad school, had my rhythm, had my routine. It was perfect.
Rhythm and routine was good for you.
Oh,
Excellent.
essential, necessary, lifeblood.
Mm.
Like I had to have it. We moved,
You moved.
lost my jujitsu gym, lost the ability to exercise in the same frequencies and intensities and accessibilities, right? And I was a lost puppy. And so
Yeah.
what happened to me is what happened to most people. I got depressed because I'm like, what do I do?
Mm.
And it took me forever. I was floundering like a jellyfish, just
Yeah,
trying to
the
figure
change.
out, what do I do here?
Yeah.
Where do I go? And
Yeah.
eventually I found my feet, but that's where, and during that time, that's where I got a workup as well to kind of help understand, because I didn't feel as, it wasn't like I was depressed necessarily out of some of the standard ways that we would see depression occur.
Yeah.
Right. But fun fact, those that deal with inattention, hyperactivity, specific routines, changes in environments, they may be more prone to things like alterations in mood for significant periods of time that are low, right? Or feeling really anxious for long periods of time. Not, and I'm trying to describe these things without actually saying them as depression and anxiety.
Right. Experiencing.
Yeah, experiencing these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, i.e., what that means is they're more prone to another diagnosis of depression or anxiety that they may experience.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
No, yeah, and that's really it. So and at that point in time, it was like, all right, yeah, this is what we got. Here's some Adderall.
So you got and that's like the general prescription you'd get for ADHD.
That's stimulant. Standard protocol.
Adderall.
Yeah, standard protocol.
And
well, so it would be either dextroamphetamine, which is Adderall, or methylphenidate, which is Ritalin.
Yeah.
Or you could lisdexamphetamine, which is Vyvanse.
Yeah, Vyvanse, right. And one of the interesting things about ADHD medication is that it's versus like maybe like depression meds, right? Mm-hmm. You feel the effects.
Oh, instantaneously.
Yeah.
Because it's a Schedule II, it's a stimulant. Mm-hmm. And contrary to what some professionals, and again, certainly not everyone, there used to be this notion that people with ADHD, if they take a stimulant, it'll calm them down, right? They can just go to sleep. That's not true at all. It's just not true.
It's not true.
No.
Yeah. Not true for you when you.
No, not true at all. Like my first couple of days taking it, like I couldn't sleep like I had terrible time sleeping. It was
Mm.
awful.
Could you focus though?
Oh yeah.
So it helped you focus.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
And it will help literally in
So you
most
are
cases.
locked in.
Oh yeah. Like it was literally like I had never like seeing the movie Limitless, if you've ever seen
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and this is why this is such an addictive thing, because you can get a lot of stuff done.
You're productive.
Oh, like no other. Like
It's like your hyper focus is just like on.
it's locked in. So if I took an Adderall, right, I would be able to sit like I could get stuff done, man. And it was, I remember the first time taking it, which is why they, like in addiction medicine, we'd call it chasing the dragon. But it was literally like my brain just felt like it was, whoa.
Expanded.
Yeah, like I was very impressed. I didn't feel high, and it wasn't like a massive rush for me, but I was just like, I can see and understand everything.
I am unlocked
Oh,
a
yeah.
new level.
And it was really interesting. And what I could attribute it to the most is it was like that feeling that I get after I run 5 miles.
Got you. Like the endorphins.
But it stayed the entire day.
Whoa.
Which, according to the research, makes sense because
Mhm.
with exercise, we typically see those effects last 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours tops.
Mhm.
Right. But this, I didn't have to work for at all. I just,
Pop the pill.
yeah, which is what people want. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was great.
Whoa. Mm-hmm.
It was great until it wasn't.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Until it ran out. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So let's come back to the medicine
Sure.
part. So, okay. So you got diagnosed. It was like, made sense. Eventually you got prescribed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me share about my wife, Callie. So she's like the closest person I know who has ADHD. And she used to struggle with anxiety. So she was diagnosed with anxiety, like even before I met her.
Yeah.
And very obvious when she would be dealing with it throughout our dating and marriage. And then a friend of ours was visiting us and pointed out to her and was like, "Hey, do you think you might have ADHD?" And she's like, "No, like I'm organized. I stay focused. I meet my goals. Like, like all is like, I don't have ADHD. Like ADHD is for people who can't focus, can't
do
get
anything.
stuff done. Right. So she's like, no, and our friend was like, well, I know a lot of people with ADHD. I know people who manage it well, but they still have it. And it sounds like you manage it well, but I'm seeing signs you might want to get it checked. And so at that time, I was in school and learning about ADHD as well. And I was like picking up on stuff. I was like, hey, babe, you should probably maybe get this checked out. And I would like talk to her about it. And she'd be like, yeah, I do have this. I do have this. Of course, she went to the psychiatrist and it was like big fat positive, right? Like,
Yeah.
of course, she had it.
Boom.
And
Done.
one of the things I learned is that with women, it can be harder to diagnose.
They typically present more as inattentive.
Yeah.
With women, the
Like the
predominant
fidgeting, you don't see the
not
fidgeting
with women.
and the
With women, the predominant presentation is inattentive type.
yeah, right.
Or
And I
that's
hear
how it
that even like
presents.
the hyperactivity is not as obvious. If they do have the hyperactivity, it's not as like visibly obvious.
No.
Like with like
It is not.
boys, like you see like they're like swinging, fidgeting, but there's a lot of like internal hyperactivity.
Sure.
Yeah. So with Callie was like, I realized that a lot of the anxiety was driven by unmanaged ADHD, right? So like change, like you talked about, like whenever we have big life transitions and we like moved a lot since we got married, we have all these changes. Like, dude, her mental health, you just wait for it to happen.
And this is where I think it's relevant to point out that because the medication can help you focus and help you make decisions about something, that's where I would say the byproduct is, okay, now I'm calm. It's not that it actually physiologically calms you down, because make no mistake, It's a stimulant. It will increase your heart rate. It will increase your blood pressure. You are up.
Yeah.
However, it will also, for many people that take it, it will help you make quick decisions, definitive decisions, to which those people that deal with those factors are then going to feel better about being able to do.
Right.
Because it's one more thing.
Which then
that
makes
which
you
then,
feel calm.
okay, now I feel good. I got this off the list. It's not
So
looming
not the medication
over me.
itself.
No.
Got you. Now, that makes a lot of sense.
That is my personal presentation on that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I see that in her life as well. And one big thing that I'd say triggered the anxiety for her, and I see it again with some of the clients I've worked with, is this idea that there are times when I can hyper focus and get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah.
And there are times when I just absolutely can't. And
brain fog.
And it's like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just like turn it on? Why can't I just be as productive as I know I can be?
Sure.
Right. And it's that anxiety of like, it's that anxiety of where, she'll often like create a huge to-do list for her day based on previous performance on maybe a day where she was like on, right? Like hyper focused. So she's like, I know I'm capable of getting all this stuff done. But then on that same day, like not there,
sure,
it's not working. And so, and even basic tasks may be hard to do. And it's just like, what is wrong with me? Like, what is going on? Yeah. Right. And then you see kids deal with this as well, where it's like, why can't I pay attention like all my classmates? Why can't I just do basic tasks?
Some days are good. Some days are
not. Like what is up? And so you find like a lot of people with undiagnosed ADHD deal with huge like
complex
like self-esteem or self-concept issues, like what's wrong
with
my ability to perform and do things in the world. I don't understand why I do it sometimes and I can't other times.
It's worth noting too that when, like, let's say in a perfect world, like a child is able to get exercise, be outside, not have screens in front of them, their ability to be able to manage those impulses and those dysregulations is going to be much higher. And so essentially what you have is like, let's say you have a child that has these criteria. Let's say, if you don't want to say ADHD, we'll call it this criteria, right? This criteria of things that they seem to deal with more. When you have less screen time, more time outside, more time in these environments, you are then increasing their ability to be able to tolerate these areas. Now, it's not to say it's going to take it away, because it just doesn't work that way. Like,
it's more like to be managed.
It's going to help manage it, because if you were to take that same child and place them in front of screens all day, that would be way worse.
You're asking for
you're asking
trouble.
Yeah. And that is the majority of children today, right? They spend over 2 hours, I don't want to misquote that, but I'm pretty sure. What's the average time? Let's ask you. What is it? Yeah, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
What is the average time that a child spends watching TV?
Yeah. So ChatGPT, what is the average time that a child spends watching TV a week, on a given week, or given
say day? A day.
Given day. It's gonna be.
I was gonna say.
I bet it's more than 2 hours,
maybe.
All right. So searching the web here. It's giving me graphs. Okay, children aged 8 to 12 in the United States.
Oh dear.
This is wild, dude. Children aged 8 to 12 in the United States spend an average of 4 to 6 hours
Holy
per day
crap.
using screens, which includes watching television, using computers, and playing video games. And that doesn't surprise me at all. Like, even
you're
based
right.
on
you're right.
Based on
you're right.
What I've heard.
You're right, and that's true. Like, but that is
it's
so
crazy
much,
though.
That's so much time.
Yeah, it's wild.
Like, that's
4 to 6.
That's
hours
a ridiculous
per day.
amount of time.
And that's usually outside of school hours.
Yeah, which
talking about.
And if you're like, let's say figuring, okay, they're doing this, and then in school they're asked to sit down and stare at something, like. They're
listen to the teacher.
Yeah, listen to the teacher. Do something like
learn a hard math problem.
Yeah, something that they don't have any desire to do in the first place. In most cases, their ability to focus inherently, like even a child that has no neurological disorder, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
challenging.
Right.
That's very
That's very
challenging.
hard.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing too about like things like video games is that, you know, when parents complain about like my child plays video games constantly, I can't get them to just like focus on school, focus on life, focus on getting a job, on pursuing these life goals, right? Is that they believe that this kid is um not up for a challenge, which is true to a certain extent. But the way video games are designed is that there is an inherent challenge in video
Oh,
games.
100%.
And the video game designers know that.
Yeah.
And they've created this perfect
environment.
storm,
Yeah.
right? So you look at Fortnite, for example, which is like one of the most popular games.
Sure.
Like you're in an arena of like 100 people and there can only be one winner, right? So there you have the challenge.
There can only be one.
Yeah. And so you have these people playing for hours trying to win at this game. And so there's a challenge that stimulates them, but it's very controlled. It's easier than the uncertainty of life challenges, right? So they're still activating the same like, okay, challenge, action,
the same reward
system.
Yep.
But it's just much easier and much more controlled. And so other life challenges are like, nah. Too hard.
Well, there's a lot of immediate stimulus.
There you go.
There's a lot of immediate gratification that can come from it because there's a lot of immediate entertainment. There's high entertainment value there. Yeah. And I would say not enough children have the ability to just go outside and pick up rocks, look underneath rocks, play in the mud, get dirty, and use their imagination to be able to foster, all right, this is what I'm really interested in. This is what I want to do. I'm going to play. Right, and create. We talked about C.S. Lewis a long time ago, right? And he was a huge fan of this because he believed that in reading, children had the opportunity to do this, and that's why reading was so important. Was because there was so much development there in their brain and imagination, which does not happen when a child watches TV or plays video games. They're not thinking about how they can create and mold, and their brain
because it's created for you.
It's created for you. Right, you step into this other place. You don't create the place you step into.
You don't create the world.
No,
you step into it.
Now you could argue that okay, maybe with like things like Minecraft, right? But I would say still to a large degree, like that was still very much set up for you. There's still limitations and rules and bounds within that, and so yeah, I think that it's just one of those huge things that's a crazy problem, clearly.
Yeah.
As far as screen time is concerned.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. So I'm trying to remember how we got to the children and screens. So going back to this idea of like, oftentimes people will experience anxiety, depression, but it's linked to these other criteria.
Yeah.
That is linked to ADHD. Right. So another thing that I heard, especially when I understood it better with my wife, is, when we hear about like the attention deficit, like not being able to pay attention, what was interesting to learn was that it's not so much less attention, but it was that you're paying attention to so many things at one time that it's hard for you to focus
on one area.
Like there's so many tabs open, and it's like if I'm told to just focus on this tab, it's hard, and it's like all these tabs are open. And so one of the things like my wife will say is like it's hard for me to just shut my brain off, or just like to just turn off the noise. So there's always like noise in my brain. Like I can't, because I'm like, dude, just don't think about it. Just don't think about it. It's like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that's funny.
I'm like, dude, why you gotta think about it? So like, but it's like, no, it's like this thing is just like bothering me.
Sure.
Right. And so it's like, how do I focus the attention? Has it been like that? Is that how you describe your experience?
Yeah, so I would say that, no, it was definitely very much like that. Even to the point that like today I could tell you that I was hosting some people over and I had someone text me about something. And from that point on, or no, it was like I saw something. Yeah, I think I had seen something, and my brain was literally in that place for the next 30 minutes. And my wife was like, "I know you're thinking about that. Please stop. Like, we need to fix this because
So you
I'm
could tell
somewhere. Yeah, I'm somewhere
yeah,
else.
yeah,
Right. I'm somewhere else
yeah.
right now.
And I see that with my wife as well, so,
And
all the
so,
time. I'm just like, yeah, she's somewhere else right now.
so, yeah, that's admittedly a challenge. Now,
hmm
after that, I went and decided to. We had an open mat here today, so I did some jujitsu, and that was better for me. Right. Got some exercise, functional exercise, because I don't actually take stimulant medications anymore to manage ADHD, only because I felt that the cons did not outweigh the pros.
Yeah. The cons outweigh the pros.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I said that wrong.
Yeah.
I felt that the pros did not outweigh the cons.
Got you. For you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, again, it's good to also notice too that there's many other medications that are also prescribed for ADHD. Guanfacine is one, or Intuitive. That's a non-stimulant medication that was actually first used as a blood pressure medication that was found to help individuals with hyperfocus. And Strattera is a really common one.
Guanfacine is like the blood thinner.
So it acts as a blood thinner.
Yeah.
So, or a medication for high blood pressure. Yeah. But Strattera is another one that's used really, really commonly. That's a non-stimulant medication. It works by increasing norepinephrine specifically. So that's another really common one. There's a couple others that have been used off-label pretty frequently, like Effexor and Wellbutrin. Those are used off-label pretty common. So there is other ones that can help ameliorate that. However, for me, honestly, the best management for myself was through a variety of lifestyle changes and then supplements that I kind of went on a massive rabbit trail. Figuring
supplementation.
Out, oh yeah. To find like the things that seem to help the best.
Yeah. So when did you realize that it wasn't working for you? Like the Adderall and the what was it? What were you experiencing?
Well, so initially my wife just needed a reprieve, so she was like, "Please do not stop taking the medication." So
Get out.
Please just take your medication, but I just need a reprieve.
Yeah. Reprieve from what? Like what
reprieve from all over. Right. All over the place, and not
so she could sense the difference.
Oh, 100%. Like she like,
and that's the big thing though, is that I think sometimes an ADHD diagnosis is sometimes really helpful for the spouse of the person with it, because it just at least it gave me much more empathy for my wife.
Sure. And
I'm just like, she's not doing this intentionally.
No.
Right. Because sometimes it comes off that way. It's like, dude, do you not care? Like,
you don't even care.
Yeah. Like, what's up, man? Like,
yeah,
dude, we have responsibilities. We have things to. Why are you scatterbrained? Why are you right? Why are you thinking about this? So like, I'm talking to you.
You're on the moon.
I'm trying to have a conversation, and you're like, your mind is like elsewhere, and it often you take personal offense because like you have your normal brain. You're just like, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, but it's like, oh, okay, it's the ADHD.
Sure,
right? And it's not an excuse per se.
Well, and so here's the tricky part, right? Because at what point does it become the personal responsibility to do something about it and manage it?
Good question.
Right? So that was why, okay, for me, it was like, no, I need to be able to manage it. And if I'm not going to take this medication, then I need to find another way that it can be managed effectively.
Because, you couldn't just be like, sorry, honey, I'm struggling. This is what you have to deal with.
I don't want to take anything. I'm not,
this is what you have to deal with.
I don't have anything. Like, that just wasn't true, because like there was, and again, even if let's say I don't believe in ADHD, right? My inattention and inability to focus on specific things was a significant problem.
Yeah, it had a very real impact.
And by the way, which is what we use to determine like the diagnosis is how much does it inhibit the level of functioning, right? Just plain and simple. And that's like, we would do that with most things, but that's really the key factor there is how much does it inhibit the level of functioning or development. Right?
Okay, so you're taking this medication. Your wife is seeing the real benefits.
Yeah, she's like, fantastic.
Yeah. right?
Oh yeah.
You
I
guys got
mean,
your 4
wait,
kids. You're like dealing
oh,
with
at
all
that
this
time we
stuff.
didn't have four. I
Oh,
had,
that's what I mean.
yeah,
Okay.
like we had Avery, and then like man, like I was able to do a lot of things. I built a business, built a practice, like it grew fast. Like
So professionally,
professionally, I was like,
family,
pew, like
yeah.
beelined.
Okay. So you're like just crushing it all these areas.
Yeah,
So like
in certain areas.
certain
And
areas.
yeah.
Okay.
But I
So
will say this is an interesting thing. I did notice, and I felt that this was relevant. I felt that I was actually a worse therapist when I
okay,
took
tell
some
me
of
more about that.
be,
So that's one of the cons you started to realize?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
In what way?
Because I wasn't able to slow down enough actually to be able to sit with people and not try to problem solve. Because even the medication doesn't cure ADHD. Let's be clear. It doesn't cure ADHD. It helps you manage some of the symptoms, but again, part of it still has side effects. Some of those side effects also happen to impact in the sense that it's like, okay, well, my temper may be quicker, right? Which is a common one.
Frustration.
Frustration may happen because, again, let's not forget your blood pressure is going up, right? Your heart rate's going up, right? I may be more quick to make a judgment about something and then say it. Which typically we would say, okay, well, maybe Adderall helps with impulse control because many kids, like children, are prescribed stimulant medications to help manage impulse control, right? And that's still controversial in my opinion. But again, there was still pieces of that didn't help me in my therapeutic way to be able to sit with people because not having certain medication, let's say, or at least on the current regimen now that I have, like my ability to sit and be present and not try to overstep, I would say is higher. And I think that's evidenced by also people's feedback as well. Right. And
like you received that feedback as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's real.
So, and that's what I have to be able to evaluate.
Yeah. And and my wife also noticed that when she started taking medication is that her ability to, when she's described as like process her emotions and to feel them kind of like was muffled in a way.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of feeling going on.
Yeah, so she's like, I need to like skip medication for a few days so I can just like process emotionally what's going on in my life. Because I feel like it just like shuts it off and I'm just like, go, go, go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
which is
she's like, I like this. I like not having to be, because I feel like sometimes it slows me down. But at the same time, like I feel like I need to process my emotions. I need to be, right? Yeah.
Okay, so are you familiar with Blitzkrieg?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
What do you know about Blitzkrieg?
So Blitzkrieg was when, correct me if I'm wrong, this was when the Germans bombed London. I'm wrong. Okay.
No. Yeah, basically when they were able to get into France.
Oh, France, yes. Yeah. Yes.
And
it
so
France.
They did it in a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah, it was like unheard of.
Yeah, it was unheard of. You know
they
why?
Caught them off guard.
You know why? One of the reasons why.
Were they on the Adderall?
Yes.
Were they on stimulants?
The entire German army, it's estimated, all had stimulants. Because at that point in time in Europe, like you could pick them up at the grocery store like in little packs. But the entire German army had stimulants.
Oh, it was off the counter.
Yeah, over the counter. They all had stimulants. And so they were just rolling, man.
Success. So it's like a perfect ad.
In
a bad way.
You want to get stuff done?
Yeah.
Blitzkrieg.
It's like you should name the med Blitzkrieg. But anyway.
Yeah, so I mean,
that's wild.
Again, arguably the medication does work. You can do a lot.
Go.
You can go. But there's there's always a cost. You're stealing from tomorrow. In many ways. Like I feel like my sleep quality also decreased while I was taking the medication because it has to be impacted.
Yeah. So sleep quality, Your therapy was affected.
Yeah.
And so those were some of the were those some of like the first like signs for you where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
this is
So those were some of the first ones. And then the other one was too, is that the come down coming off of it feels like your brain is being dragged through mud. It's awful.
Would you describe that as withdrawal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because arguably that's what's happening to a certain degree. Now, if you time it right, that's happening as you're starting to get tired and go to sleep. So you don't really, it's like, oh, I'm just tired now. I just want to go to sleep. However, in many cases, what happens for people is the same amount doesn't often provide the same stimulus. So a common thing that people will have to do is they increase, or after a while, they just don't notice the Adderall anymore. So they may say, oh, well, it's just not working anymore. And they go off of it. And then they're like, whoa, what happened here? Or they're like, yeah, it's not doing anything. I need a higher dose. Because what happens literally with the medication is your body, your brain will adjust to the dose that you're taking.
Tolerance.
Yeah, there's a tolerance that happens, and a pruning that will also occur because it's not like it's blocking the reuptake of dopamine. That's what it's doing. So your brain, because it's blocking the reuptake of dopamine, it'll start to prune those receptors over time. Because the brain is highly efficient.
Yeah.
It's not going to try to keep what it doesn't need.
Got you. So a lot of people go for a higher dosage in order.
It's
to
very common. Certainly not everyone, but it's very common.
Very common. Yeah. Got you. So the withdrawal was just like, ugh.
Yeah. Did not like it,
dude. What's happening to me?
Yeah.
I'm losing it.
No. So I think of this movie. I think of this movie Limitless, but I really believe that Limitless was inspired by this. But you remember the part where he's like, all of a sudden he's just jonesing for another one and everything's starting to fall apart and like he's like it's kind of gets kind of graphic, but yeah, that's literally, it's like, oh, that's now that I've taken that stuff before, I'm like, no, that's exactly what it was like. Yeah. I could write a book. I could run for president. Why not? Like
I could run for president.
Like he does at the end of the film. But
so you got to a point where like I something needs to change. Like I need to try something else.
I wanted something. I wanted things to be more sustainable. I did like how it functioned. I can't say that it doesn't work. The stuff does work. That's why it's one of the number one medications for ADHD.
Right, and that's why people without ADHD all still try to use it.
Yeah, it's one of the most commonly abused medications on college campuses.
Yes.
Like, I can't tell you how many college students I've talked to that are like, oh yeah, I just took a buddy's Adderall, got this stuff done, good.
Well,
it's super common.
Yeah.
Because again, no, it does work.
So transitioning to something more sustainable was a goal for you.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And that's when you moved into, like, of course, lifestyle changes.
Lifestyle changes,
and supplementation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had been trying supplementation for a while because honestly, from the time that I was first taking it, I was trying to figure out a way that I didn't have to take it.
Oh, from the beginning?
Yes,
You're like, how can I not?
But like, I knew that, all right, like this is necessary right now. Like I need to be able to utilize this. But there was,
and I think that's a good thing to just maybe emphasize for people out there, because I think there are people who are just like, the idea of medication is a tough idea to accept.
Yeah,
but it might be helpful to weigh
absolutely
the necessity.
No, and there was,
of your functioning.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like there was a time that like, no, I took the medication. It was very necessary for the time that it existed. And once manageability was able to come into focus, and I was able to have a better plan and orientation of things.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Done.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, again, my story is not like everyone's, certainly.
Right.
I feel that there were certain things that are very functional for me, but maybe not everyone has that or responds to those same agents. Now, again, I tend to be a purist in some ways, and I'm very interested in things that can last with as minimal side effects as possible. And so for that reason, like, I'm actually not like, I think stimulants, they have a place, but I'm not the biggest fan of stimulants, admittedly.
Yeah. And so
And
For
so
that reason.
for that reason,
The
we are now a
supplementation.
neuro affiliate.
Hey, okay. So yeah, you've been sitting with these things for a while, dude.
Yeah.
So take us through what we got here.
I mean, honestly, this isn't even. I don't even use these really. Like, excuse me. I do. Okay. So NeuroGum, I think is excellent.
I actually use the mints.
The mints are
sometimes.
good. So
yeah.
okay. So the thing when I say stimulants, I'm not a huge fan of stimulants. That includes caffeine. I think caffeine has its place.
Yeah.
But again, for me, I experience a drop from caffeine even in a low dose. So like 40 milligrams is what I consider a low dose. Most caffeinated.
Quick high and then crash.
Yes. I don't think it's helpful.
Mm.
And how much caffeine does the average American consume? Ask ChatGPT.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
On a daily basis.
Ooh,
I'm gonna say 200. Yeah,
caffeine?
I'm gonna say 200 milligrams.
You're gonna say 200 milligrams?
Yeah.
All right, ChatGPT. How much caffeine does the average American consume per day?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So you're saying 200 milligrams a day?
Yeah.
And that's like what? Like a cup of coffee?
That would be just over 2 cups of coffee
A day.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So here we're getting the results here. Average daily caffeine consumption generally falls within 135 to 243.
Yep. So 2 to 3 to 3 cups of coffee a day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Coffee, is the main source. Tea, substantial contributor. Soda,
Energy drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think those are quick fixes. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't think they're as sustainable. So one reason that I like Neuro is that you can control the dosing easier. Each tablet has 40 milligrams of caffeine. It also has L-theanine, which helps alter some of that crash and the jitters. L-theanine is a branched chain amino acid, which has a lot of co-contributors to dopamine production and norepinephrine. And it's very helpful. It's also used as a supplement to help control anxiety and help reduce symptoms of anxiety, which can be very helpful. The gum doesn't have any caffeine in it, so it's just L-theanine, ginseng, and B12.
Oh yeah, caffeine free.
Yeah, and B6 and B12.
Nice.
So, which by the way, studies show that individuals that that may supplement with B6, B12, B vitamins essentially are going to respond better.
That need help supplementing B12?
That B vitamins are helpful for those individuals that have ADHD. Now they're helpful for everyone, arguably. Okay. But it's one of those things that is your first line. A guy that writes, he does a really good job. Dr. Jeff Greenblatt does a really good job. He writes a book called Finally Focused. Has a lot of really good information just on some basically natural lines towards dealing with those things. But yeah, so I like what Neuro's done with that, and they have options with caffeine and options without. I think it's very functional.
Yeah.
But admittedly, those aren't my first line for dealing with it.
Yeah, I feel like this is more of like a nice, like sometimes like mid-afternoon, I'm just like, get a NeuroGum.
Yeah, didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night.
Yeah.
There we go. Like
So we actually there's a link at the bottom. You can check it out. Get a discount.
Yes.
On a NeuroGum order. So
absolutely.
Yeah, they're pretty tasty too.
They are tasty. Yeah. Honestly, they are really tasty.
Yeah.
If you like, so the gum is very minty, which I like.
Yeah, but minty's nice. Yeah. Okay, so first line, not your first line.
Not even my first line, just like this is like a supplement to the supplement.
Yeah, supplement to the supplement.
Yeah.
Okay, so like how did you end up with your current like mix of what helps you?
Lots of nerding out.
Yeah, lots of research papers. Yeah, like they will send me research papers and I'm like, man, I need ChatGPT to like translate this to 10-year-old language. Like, please break this down for me. Otherwise, I'm going to be sitting here for hours.
Honestly, trying
to understand this paper.
One of the ones that I find, and admittedly, I took 5 milligrams before this conversation.
Yeah.
And that was methylene blue. We've talked about it before.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, methylene blue.
Okay.
Which you took 7 milligrams before this conversation.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I actually feel great. Because I was
You were
struggling
like, yeah,
before this.
yeah, exactly.
I was struggling before this. Yeah, kind of feeling a little sniffles coming through. But I'm like, this conversation, I haven't even thought about
Yeah.
the fact that I was struggling earlier today.
And it's not just good conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
It's methylene blue plus methylene blue.
Yeah. So no, methylene blue, I think, again, what methylene blue does, methylene blue, for those, we've talked about this before, it's a synthetic dye.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it greatly increases hemoglobin and mitochondrial production. Does have impacts on norepinephrine, dopamine as well. And so maybe some people that hear me say this, whether they're physicians, it's like, what, you're taking that stuff orally? It's like, no, actually, so safe dosing for that. So, or I should say, the high end of dosing for that is typically in the 100 milligram range, and it's typically used intravenously in medical procedures. We don't even scratch a surface of that, like 5 to 7 milligrams, and that's orally. Very small. Yeah, and it's has one of the better absorption rates is orally. Obviously, if you're not going to take it intravenously.
Yeah.
So it actually, and honestly, one of the reasons that I first started taking it was because I have what's called Raynaud's syndrome, in which your circulation for whatever.
Say that again?
Raynaud's
syndrome?
Yeah. So it's like,
what is
the
that?
circulation in your extremities is like pretty significant to where your hands or feet might get cold. Like, and
there's lack of it,
it's like a lack of circulation, and they think it is autoimmune, but they don't really know why. What causes it? Yeah, they don't. They have no idea. However, they have found that methylene blue literally can address it. And for me, when I take methylene blue, gone.
Whoa, for your Raynaud's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or if I'm having a day to where it's like, for whatever reason, my circulation's really poor, my hands are cold, I don't know why. The rest of my body's warm.
Yeah.
If I take 2.5 milligrams of methylene blue, I'm set.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So methylene blue. So that's
that
something that helps with your ADHD as well.
100%.
It helps with what? Exactly.
I would say
focus. What?
Focus is pretty significant, and a lack of brain fog. Because arguably, you could say too that, hey, maybe the symptoms I'm experiencing, and this is, I don't want to get too far off in the weeds. Some people may experience these sets of ADHD also from you, because we could meet this criteria if we had really poor diet, if we had really bad sleep, if we had perhaps certain parasites. It's possible to meet that criteria. So sometimes, like, knowing what it is can be hard to determine. Now, for me, we had talked about my experience in Africa.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe in theory, it's possible that I still have, malaria parasites in me that act up every once in a while. Theoretically, I haven't gotten a malaria test since I've been in Africa. So I don't know.
Okay.
But notably, methylene blue was used as a malaria treatment way back in the day because it's an antiparasitic.
So methylene blue existed for what? Like,
for a long time. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Like, search real quick. Ask ChatGPT. When did methylene blue first come about? I think it was like 18. I don't know, or maybe it's like 1920.
1920. Okay. When did methylene blue first come about? Like, what year?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. 18. That's 18.
That's a long time ago. What did it say?
1876.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was German chemist.
Yeah.
Heinrich Karl.
Yeah.
Whoa. And anti-malarial treatment.
Yeah.
Before drugs like quinine and.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Wow. Okay. So what would you say to somebody who's open to the idea of supplementation, but maybe when they hear the word synthetic, they're like, oh.
Well, first know that it is a drug. Like, it is a synthetic drug.
Yeah.
In my opinion, though, like, even supplements are drugs. Like,
yeah,
you're putting something in your body to provide a certain effect, and even good things can provide really negative impacts. So, for instance, if you take too many beets, for example, or were to drink like an entire gallon of beet juice, you'd be in real bad shape because beets have nitric oxide in them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And can literally really mess you up. Like, if you have a nitric oxide overdose.
I mean, even just like Brazil nuts. Brazil nut is like a superfood.
Yeah.
But you can get selenium poisoning if you take too many nuts.
Exactly.
Right? So we're talking about like really good stuff.
Yeah. if I eat too much kale, I can't leave the bathroom. Like, okay,
Wait,
so
what?
like, yeah, like if I have too much kale, like, so
Yeah.
again, like there are things that like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're natural things, but they're something that you're taking for an intervention of some other purpose. So my opinion on this is that, hey, yes, I am taking something. It's for a specific purpose. Can I be able to take it in a regulated fashion?
Yeah. Right.
So my first recommendation is, hey, talk to your doctor. I'm just gonna
Of course.
like
Yeah.
talk to your doctor
Yeah.
or health professional about that. Do your own research. Obviously, like look into it, but I would say first and foremost, talk to your doctor or a professional that you feel is competent in that area, preferably your doctor. And
Yeah.
don't just listen to what I'm saying here right now.
Yeah.
These
Right.
these are my experiences. This is what I've been
Yeah.
able to come up with here. But
Mm-hmm.
and granted, there is a lot of research online for this. Methylene blue has been researched more heavily recently, and actually, like it kills COVID. And I think I've talked before even about like its impacts with streptococcus and other things. It's a huge immune system booster.
Wow.
So it's pretty interesting. So
Yeah.
that was again,
So yeah.
that was
So
the first thing that I discovered. I was like,
methylene blue was the first.
Yeah,
Before
well, so-
your other supplements.
that was the one I would say that I started noticing the most significant impacts from, like in a big way.
Okay.
The other one that really helped though was NAC, N-acetylcysteine,
Mm-hmm.
which is a branched chain amino acid, and I believe back in the 50s it was actually used as an over the counter or as a prescription medication. Go ahead and ask ChatGPT.
Okay.
Pretty
So
sure.
NAC.
Yeah, N-acetylcysteine.
So when was NAC used and what for? When did it first come about? All right. So let's see here. It said NIC. I'm talking about NAC, dude. Okay. This is why ChatGPT sometimes it takes what you give it.
Oh,
That's artificial intelligence.
There you
It takes
go.
what you give it. So I corrected it. Yeah, NAC 1960s was introduced as a treatment for acetaminophen overdose.
yep.
Got you.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
been around a fairly long time, and
Yeah.
now it's not a control. Like you don't need a prescription for that. Again, that's a
Over the
supplement.
counter.
Yeah, you can
Yep.
you can get it on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, yeah,
Methylene blue as well.
methylene blue you can get on Amazon as well. And now you do want a pharmaceutical grade methylene blue because there's some other ones out there that are like,
Ooh, sketch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So NAC was the other one that was really significant for me. The other one that, again, there's been much more research on the neurocognitive benefits, and I had tried it years ago, but the only problem was it was in conjunction with a host of other things, so I was unsure at the time. That's lion's mane. So lion's mane is again huge neurocognitive.
It's a mushroom, right?
It is a mushroom. Yeah. So lion's mane is a mushroom, and basically, like you extract them. You extract. I'm gonna butcher the term. The Heracleans. I'm butchering. Ask ChatGPT.
I
what's
wouldn't
in
even
lion's
know.
mane. It's
What's in lion's mane?
Heracleans.
So there's something in lion's mane.
In mushrooms in general, that is basically providing the nootropic effect, right?
Okay, yeah. What is that in lion's mane that provides the nootropic effect? Right, that's the question we're asking.
Sure.
Yeah. Interesting. Man, I'm learning a lot today. Yeah, it's Hericium.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce
Hericium.
that?
Or that's how
Hericium. Yeah. Found primarily in the fruiting body.
Yes.
Stimulate the production of nerve growth factor. Yep.
Yeah, and that's the key part is what many people miss is that it stimulates the production of nerve growth factor, which is different. Which is different. It's a different type of nootropic in that way.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, because most nootropics are going to prevent reuptake of something similar to a medication and in a similar fashion than a medication might. But this stimulates nerve growth factor, which is essentially meaning that it helps heal the brain.
Awesome. So
and it's also consequently an anti-inflammatory.
That's awesome.
So,
Yeah.
no,
So
it's
like
fascinating.
so many
Really.
other benefits.
The
Yeah.
only trouble, and I'm really big on this. I do not like supplements that have a bunch of other things in them. I'm really averse to those, which
Like
is
you
why
just like the
I don't
pure
even,
thing
I like when I'm trying a supplement out for the first time, I like only using that one thing for a significant period of time,
like
typically 30
to the
days.
exclusion of other
Yes,
supplements.
unless I already know how I respond to those other ones.
Okay.
So if I'm adding a new one
So you're
in,
not just like, yeah, let me
no, I'm
get
not
this
just
and that and
no,
this.
no. So
Yeah.
if I'm trying something for the first time, I typically, if I'm taking other things, I want to know how I respond to those things for a significant period of time, I
sort of a controlled trial
as
of
much as
sorts.
possible.
Yeah.
And then okay, we add this in to see how it responds, and that's where I had a hard time finding one that was trustworthy. And as I learned more, it's like okay, like you want specifically a good ratio. The typical ratio that I have is 10-1, right? So it's like the fruiting body, right, inside the supplement powder. So some supplements you get, it's like it's powder and starches and it's a whole bunch of fluff. And so you
very
might get
little lines. In it.
very little actual lines made. You might get like a 30-1 ratio or something. And it's like that's not as helpful.
Yeah.
So typically I'm going to look for supplements that have research and data on how much of the actual product they have. And a lab has evaluated how much product is actually in your supplement. And then the ratio is higher. So it's like, okay, 10-1 ratio. The reason that I look at those ratios is because that's the same amount of ratio that's used in the research that evaluates its effectiveness for certain cognitive functions.
Got you.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You want to use the same dosage.
Yes, I don't want
to. Research is saying
exactly, because otherwise, what am I doing?
Yeah, like what evidence?
There's no helpful evidence. So
yeah,
and even when I started taking methylene blue, I was looking at okay, well, what does research say? What have been the trials that people have done before? So I was still looking at all right, what's common for people to utilize and what's the most effective method? Because there's companies that sell methylene blue tablets or like methylene blue like capsules. I don't find that to be as effective as a nootropic. Right, oral in my opinion.
Like the
liquid. Like liquid drops in water.
Yeah,
most effective delivery system.
Boom,
right there.
Yeah, got you. Okay, so NAC.
Yeah,
lion's mane,
methylene blue.
That's what you found to be.
Yeah, those have been the top tier in my opinion for management of ADHD, or rather, management of the symptoms that I am exhibiting.
Yes, right. And for you, it's like, again, you're not dismissing the importance of like getting your exercise.
No, absolutely not. Because again, I said that earlier today. Like I had taken lion's mane today but I still was in a little, like I definitely was like, oh. So I was able to exercise. That was very helpful. But again, arguably, like if I go a few days with really low sleep, it's going to be significantly harder, right? So I would say that these things, though, again, and this is the real fail test for me, right? If I can take supplements for a period of time, and my wife, like, so when I first started, I had stopped taking Adderall, and I was doing these supplements, and I was like, all right, honey, like a week later, how am I doing? How are things going?
Yeah.
And she looks at me. Why are you asking me this question? Right? And I was like, so it's working.
It's working. It's working. No, that's how you know.
No, I mean, I like obviously like I can tell a difference myself, but those are significant things. Another thing that's really relevant too, that I try to be pretty diligent about, at least semi-frequently, is get some blood work done to figure out get some blood work done, like whenever you introduce something new, to see how your body's responding, just to make sure that it's safe for you. And so for me, that's one thing I did even recently, was I got some blood work done.
Okay.
And I wanted to see,
what are you looking for in the blood work?
So I want to see, all right, like the most obvious one is like, hey, is this giving me cancer? Like, do I have a high white blood cell count? Anything here that's awry that I should be concerned about? So generally speaking, I try to look for as much a broad spectrum as possible. Doc, everything look good? Hey, great. Okay, we're good. Right. But then also I think for men especially, like being able to look at things like testosterone is relevant too, because low testosterone can give some of these same side effects that we might see within a diagnosis like this, right? And so that's relevant to know. Or things like hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism. And so, like, are any of these supplements impacting my thyroid function, or any of these things? So, how well am I doing here in these areas? Is everything functioning how it should be? If it is, great.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, do that with your healthcare professional. Review that.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I did recently. And another interesting one, by the way, and I think this is relevant. So one of the big fads right now that you have, and we'll probably go into this on another conversation, but you have guys taking things like TRT or testosterone optimization, right? Right. That is
not just for ADHD.
Not even
general.
just for performance and just in general to feel better, because that's another thing that's very similar to a stimulant in that you feel much better when you take testosterone, 100%. Now, it's relevant to note, though, that there's a lot of natural things that can help increase your testosterone naturally. One of them, I would say one of the ones that has really good research behind it is actually fenugreek.
Fenugreek.
Yeah. So
it's like a lot of Indian foods.
So
fenugreek dishes.
I believe in one study, and ask ChatGPT right now, can fenugreek increase testosterone?
Can fenugreek increase testosterone? I hope it spelled it correctly there. Oh yeah, it did. Okay. Yeah, it says fenugreek
40%.
commonly used in cooking, especially in Indian and Middle Eastern, contains let's see. Reduces testosterone breakdown, increases free testosterone.
Yes.
Right?
Which inherently is
more testosterone circulating and usable in your body.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Potential libido and energy boost.
Yeah.
Okay,
so again,
there we have it.
But that is
500 milligrams of fenugreek extract daily for 6 weeks. In a recent study, they found maintained normal testosterone levels.
Yeah,
and had improved strength.
Which
and body composition.
Let's clarify normal testosterone levels, because
Yeah,
normal testosterone levels, the range for men is like 1 to 1,000. Which is completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
A safe, like the zone is like this big.
That's a huge range.
Which most men really don't like. They're not going to respond well unless they're. I would argue between like the 650 and 900 range. But that's Dale's personal opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Okay.
But that was another thing I was interested in, because I was starting to supplement with fenugreek to see how I responded to that, and it did increase testosterone.
Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
Did it help, but not with the ADHD specifically?
No, there wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't taking that for ADHD symptoms. It was more just like lethargy and.
Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with ADHD, if you have that criteria, please control your screen usage.
Oh yeah, it's
even if you're an adult.
Yeah, 100%.
Just like, it's huge. Like your screen usage, you'll see a huge change.
Yeah.
If you drastically reduce.
100%.
Especially if you're talking about social media, just reduce it.
Yeah, that's a great thing which, by the way, David, like, obviously for those listening, David typically helps regulate my symptomatic behavior because he steers me back to the conversation. But that is a great point, because again, many people will, like, we can hyperfixate on things really easily. And so it's easy to then delve in a direction and continue with that. Screens, unfortunately, are one of the most accessible things that we can do that with.
Yeah. And that's the commodity is your attention. Like, your attention is the product when it comes to social media, right?
100%.
Like, so if we're talking about attention deficit, like, there you have it. Like, your attention is like what they have spent thousands and millions of dollars
to get,
understanding how to get.
Yeah. And they're capitalizing on it.
Yeah. So it's like, they have it. If they have it, where else does your attention need to be that it's not getting? Right?
Yeah. So
it's not demanding for it as strongly. There's one of my favorite quotes is, the most important things don't scream the loudest for your attention.
Mm.
The most important things do not scream the loudest for your attention.
Mm.
So it's not what screams the loudest that needs your attention, right? And so sometimes we have to be
Unless you're a
cognizant.
3-year-old kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's the exception. The exception is your kids, right?
Yeah.
Your
But
kid-
that's not, they're
and
not
that's
things.
good.
They're, yeah, exactly.
That's good. Is that
Yeah.
the good thing is that your kids will demand your attention, because if they didn't, then you're in trouble.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So, but there's so many other things that, again, just will not demand our attention.
Yeah. So I think circling back to this, it's helpful, I think, for any person just to be able to, all right, what are my priorities? Actually, what do those look like? How can I outline them the most efficiently and go from there? Right. If I can do that, then I can be able to accurately assess, all right, well, where does my time belong? What distractions are relevant? Which ones are not? Right. Simply laying out a game plan can be a huge, huge asset to be able to manage certain dysfunctional behavior that may or may not be ADHD.
That may or may not. And what you said, like rhythm and routine for you.
Rhythm and routine.
That was the plan. That was the game plan for you.
Literally the most important thing that we can do to manage any type of symptomatic behavior in that way is having a consistent rhythm and routine.
Not try it here. Today I tried it. Didn't work. So I took a day off, tried it again.
One of the best, I would say, like, just sayings or statements is that, we don't get to keep motivation, right? We get to decide to be disciplined, right? So your motivation is never going to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Your discipline can, because it's a conscious choice that we get to make to be that way, in spite of comfort, discomfort, in spite of a desire or not. We're not always going to feel motivated to stay consistent within certain areas, inside of certain rhythms or routines. But we can decide to be disciplined in an area.
That's a good distinction. Different.
100%
Very
different.
Because some people think discipline is dependent on motivation.
Never. Never.
Never.
The whole concept of discipline means that you don't, you have to disciple yourself, right, into a moment to say, I am going to do this because I don't necessarily want to do this, right? The drive is not there. So I'm going to commit to this action because I recognize that the need for this action is present.
But motivation is lacking.
Motivation is lacking, right? And maybe the problem is the fact that I have no motivation. Maybe that's the problem. Even more so the reason that I'm going to discipline myself to do this now.
Ooh. And that might need its whole episode.
Yeah, we probably need to go to that place next. But
yeah. Cool. All right. Well, intro to ADHD right there.
Intro. Yeah, there's the soft intro.
Soft intro.
Until next time.
All right.